Coming up today on the Cruise View, we take a look at the chef's table. Plus, we spend some time in music hall. And I got to sit down with the star of Mamma Mia, Danielle Black, to learn what it's like to perform on a cruise ship. It's all coming up, so let's set sail. Welcome to day 9B of the Cruise View on board the Quantum of the Seas. And today is the first sea day as we start our way back up to New York to end this entire Quantum sailing for the Cruise View. But the top story for today, I don't think we've had one the past couple days, is actually that there's a nor'easter off the coast of the Carolinas that's stirring the seas up a bit, dropping some snow and rain I hear along the northeast area. Looking at the radar earlier, it looked like there were about 25 plus foot waves. As I've been following the radar throughout the day though, it looks like those seas are starting to dissipate. We are getting rougher seas today, but it looks like we won't get as severe as the radar originally indicated, which is a good sign. We'll just have to see over the next 2 days how those seas actually end up by the time we get into the middle of them. The seas usually are unpredictable. I know on the Independence there were 3 storms out there. They all look like they're headed separate directions, but all around us, and in the middle of the night they suddenly converged right on our location to create a superstorm that nobody really saw coming, so you never know what to expect. Even if it looks like it's dissipating, it could suddenly rebuild. So that'll certainly be something to watch for. But today our location was 22 degrees north by 65 degrees west. So that puts us about in line with the bottom of Florida, very, very tip of Florida. So we are still very low, not too far up north yet. And that of course means that we had great weather once again today. We had a sunrise at 6:42 a.m. and sunset at 5:37 p.m. The listed high was 77 degrees, but it seemed more like it was in the low 80s. There was a calm breeze, nothing too major, nothing that you really felt much of when you were walking around on the deck, so it was a very enjoyable day. And the seas, as I mentioned, they did slowly start increasing throughout the day, and really by about noontime, I think, the ship was really creaking and making a lot of noise, so she could certainly feel the impact of those seas. And luckily though for us, unlike the previous rough seas that we had, where it was very choppy water, we're getting a lot of shuddering of the ship and a lot of really violent movement. These are very large rolling waves, which means we're getting more of that up and down motion, something that's a little more accommodating and a little more soothing to sit through than that very rough shaking we had. So hopefully that means that we'll get some seas that won't get everyone sick, and we'll be able to continue on with the activities throughout the day. And speaking of activities, on to today's compass summary. So it was the first sea day headed back north, so a couple things did come back that we saw earlier. But the first thing that I want to mention is with every single day at 9 a.m. they do North Star ticket distributions. Past several days in port, it hasn't been too bad. You could show up about 9 o'clock. Many times get right on or wait in line and get a ticket for a very early time. Today by about 8:45 the line was stretched all the way across the pool deck, so people clearly understand this is sort of wrapping up the sailing and they want to get into those events they haven't gotten to, such as North Star, which has been running surprisingly well all sailing, but has been very difficult to get onto. I had a 3 p.m. scheduled appointment today, and from what I hear, I didn't see it myself, but it was down, I guess, from about noon till a little after 2. So they are still having many breakdowns of North Star, but overall it's been doing better. This was the first time that I was able to go out over the sea. Up to this point, it's only been in port where it goes up and down. And I believe on the transatlantic, and I know for certain in Southampton, they were kind of doing, as I mentioned a couple days ago, more of an up a little, out to the side, up all the way around to the other side, down and back to the center. Today it was more you went straight up like you would normally do in port, but once you got to the top it would then rotate off to the side a little bit and then rotate back and come back down. So it wasn't too much longer than a normal ride. I think a normal port ride we kind of sat up there at the maximum height for a while. We really didn't do that this time. We were continuously moving from start to finish. So it was maybe 2 minutes longer, if that. It really wasn't that much of a difference than what we saw before. And certainly not the 15-minute rides that they had originally said that we'd be seeing. And when we went up, we did only go off one side, so you didn't get port and starboard. Today it was only port side that you got to see. But in a similar manner, I mentioned previously as well that Ripcord was originally talking about the idea of allowing multiple runs if they were able to accommodate everyone on the sailing. And I was able to check yesterday. I did not mention a show, but they are now doing that. So it's operated the same way as North Star. They open at 9 a.m. and you can go in. If you've already made a reservation previously, you can then make one for that day and that day only. If you've never made one, you can of course make one from that moment until the end of the sailing. But overall, it's been running very empty, so most of the time you can even just walk up, get right on. So even that one-day reservation is not really too necessary unless you definitely need that certain time. But as for official events that took place on the Compass today, from 10 a.m. to noon was a shopping event, which usually I don't mention, don't really care much about them, but there was a shopping event known as Winter Wow that took place on the Royal Esplanade, and it really kind of showed off the venue more than a lot of the other events that have taken place there. It was basically their Christmas sales shopping event, so they played Christmas music the whole time, had Santa out in front of the Christmas tree, had special Christmas themed and winter themed drinks available, and they had a couple of the DreamWorks characters walking around just meeting people, taking pictures. So it was a real sort of family, sort of fun event for shopping. And if you didn't want to do shopping, it was still surprisingly enjoyable to just pass through for a couple minutes on the way to somewhere else. Just one of those things to sort of add a special atmosphere for a short period of the day. And not sure what their plans are in the future, but I think it seemed to work out, and hopefully they think of doing things like that in the future. Even if it's not shopping related, just throwing out some different themed events for periods of the day really does change the entire atmosphere of a large portion of the ship, as the Esplanade does occupy the entire center of the ship, and that little area there has many bars around it. It really is the main passageway through the ship, so it has a very wide-reaching effect when they do hold events there. And speaking of events in the Esplanade, we did have, once again, another DreamWorks performance at both 12:30 and 1:30, just like they've done the other two times. And today it was a How to Train Your Dragons themed event that featured, once again, a little bit of aerialist act, all the characters, pretty much the same as the last two, just different theme, different cast members from both Starwater and Mamma Mia that made up the whole performance. And once again, it was 10 minutes like the first one. The second one was 15 minutes, but this one was 10 minutes again. And then tonight, we had, for the second time on this sailing, I'm not sure what the reason is for doing it twice, but we once again had Groovy Town at 10:30 p.m. over in the music hall. I stopped in, spent about half an hour, and it was the same thing as last time and the same thing as last sailing, so not too much to say about it. It was emptier than last time on both this sailing and last sailing, so perhaps doing it twice got mainly repeat guests. I think the intention was it did conflict with shows for some people. I believe I had a conflict with a show in Groovy Town last time, so maybe this was to get those people able to attend, but overall I don't think they got as big a crowd, so maybe it was more repeat people that weren't too into it, but the dance floor was certainly empty compared to before. And then moving on from our compass to our daily dine, we're continuing back with our full service sea days with chef's table.
Ladies and gentlemen, very good evening. Welcome to Chef's Table, the most exclusive dining experience on board. We are serving 6-course dinner pairing with 6 different wines from around the world from some of the finest vineyards. Price per person is $85 and we have only 16 seats available per night. My name is Momchilo, I'm from Serbia and I'm sommelier and actually a guide through this extraordinary food and wine journey. Chef's Table is located in the Chops Grill on deck 5.
And the chef's table on Quantum, as mentioned, is much more integrated into Chops Grill, located right inside. So it is a slightly different experience than what many are used to on other ships. From what I've heard, it's more of just a slightly more formal, elaborate dinner rather than the very intricate learning experience that the old chef's table on other ships was. And then as for tonight's venue tour, we are continuing with our big entertainment theme for these last couple days. Today is, as mentioned before, the home of Groovy Town, the Music Hall. The Music Hall. While maybe not as often thought of as a transformative environment, it is possibly the most two-faced venue on board the ship, turning into a very quiet, calm, relaxed venue during the day to host events such as bingo or lecture series and even dance classes. In the evening, it then becomes the nightclub of the ship, featuring live bands and performances as well as the tribute acts of the ship. Accommodating 559 guests, the Music Hall is also one of the largest venues on board the ship, making it the home of some of the large service events such as the 70s party known as Groovy Town. The venue spans 2 decks, on deck 3 where it's connected to the casino, as well as deck 4 where it's directly off the Royal Esplanade. It features a large amount of seating on both levels, as well as a bar for each level individually. There's a stairwell that connects the two for easy access to the dance floor, regardless of where you're at. And on the second level, the back area acts as a little more intimate lounge zone with billiards tables for hanging out at night. With one of, if not the loudest sound system on board the ship, the Music Hall is the perfect place to go for a late night dance or just to enjoy some songs. So while you do have the Royal Theatre at the front, 270 at the back, Seaplex up on the top deck, the Music Hall really is the center of all the action. It's where the majority of events are held throughout the day, since there really is no actual show that's scheduled there, that has to rehearse there, that occupies all the facility's time. Most things are held there, most activities, games, even bingo is held there, so it is a very popular venue on board, and one that I don't think anyone could possibly avoid even if they wanted to. And I don't know why you would want to, because it is a beautiful venue to just sit and enjoy some music for a period of time. And as for our interview for today, we have another great entertainment themed interview. Today I got to sit down with Danielle Black, the star of Mamma Mia. So today I'm joined by Danielle, the lead singer in Mamma Mia. Thank you for joining me.
You're welcome. Lovely to meet you.
You play the main role in Mamma Mia. What was your first exposure to the play?
I watched the film and fell in love with it. I love the songs. I love Meryl Streep. I love Amanda Seyfried. And didn't see the show until about 5 years ago. And I've seen it about 4 or 5 times since. So it was a film, and then I watched the show and completely fell in love with the show because it was so much fun, and everyone's loves it. So yeah, that was my first encounter.
And you've been involved in a few plays before, but nothing as big as this show yet.
Yeah.
How did you first get involved in this project?
So at the time, I was doing a show, like a fringe production, which is a smaller show. And my friend at the time said, Danielle, they're doing auditions for Mamma Mia tomorrow morning at open auditions. Would you like to come with? And I was like, yeah. I mean, I'm always up for an audition, like jump at the chance to get the next job. And so I went along 8 o'clock in the morning. I was up early, as you do, waiting in the queue, and you see loads of people, and kind of, I remember waiting at the door, and just the girl before me had sung like 10 seconds worth of a song, and I was like, oh gosh, what am I doing here? And I kind of went in, managed to get through 2 songs, and then got a recall the next day. And they gave me all the material to learn overnight, and I tried to learn as much as I can without panicking, and then did the recall, and it was amazing. Like, loved working with Martha, who's the director, and it was an amazing audition, and I enjoyed every minute of it, and didn't hear back until like 3 weeks later, and yeah, so that was that.
So performing a play at sea can be extra challenging. There's a lot of other things going on there.
Yeah.
How has that transition been for you?
Well, this is my first ever ship, so I've never even been on holiday on a ship before, so it's amazing. Like, it's a challenge, especially when it's rocking.
Yeah.
It's funny, and there's some scenes in the show where, for example, walking down the aisle, when it's rocking, I have to grab onto my mum for dear life. And you're like walking, and you've got to try and walk in a straight line. So stuff like that, you know. And it's because on land you don't have that. You just kind of do the show, but it keeps it exciting. It keeps you on your toes, and on ships you kind of go back to your cabin. You go, whereas at home you go back home. So the people here become your family, and you get really close with everyone, and it's been amazing. It's an amazing show, an amazing company to be a part, to be with.
Now that you've settled into your role within Mamma Mia, are there any scenes that you especially look forward to performing each night?
I love doing Honey Honey with the girls, which is right at the beginning of the show. We all live for the finale, which is the big dance thing right at the end of the show as well, because everyone's up on their feet and everyone's faces are it's amazing. That's what I live for. Yeah. That's why I do the theatre, the job that I do, and that moment is just amazing. Like, so the finale for me and the beginning of the show is great. It's all great. It's all brilliant. But yeah, those two are what I live for. So yeah.
And are there any scenes that you had particular challenges with?
The scenes that I found most challenging were the scenes with the guy who plays Sky. We work well together, and it was just finding out how to do it, or what works best for us, and it changed over like the rehearsal period, but it's finding out what works best for both of you. But we got there in the end, and I mean, he's great. He's really great, and we got on really well, so it made it easy. But yeah, I think that was great then. But yeah.
And normally when someone stars in a play, that's all they have to do. They have one job, they focus on that the whole time, but you also have, in addition to that 2.5-hour play, you've got Sonic Odyssey.
Yeah.
And at what point in the project did you first get exposed to that second show?
Well, at the beginning of the contract, we knew we had Mamma Mia, and then it also said on the contract that we had another show called Sonic Odyssey, and I had no idea what that was. None of us did. We didn't have a clue what to expect. And I did some research on William Close, who's made all these incredible instruments, and we didn't know what our job would be. Well, obviously to sing, but we didn't know what songs, and so that was like beginning of the contract, but when we got here, we started working on that first, and it was amazing. Like, that's been a challenge, but yeah, we got there in the end.
Okay. Then William Close has been on board for a while setting up this show, and he has all sorts of instruments, as you mentioned, that he created specifically for it. Are there any in particular that you wish you could play, or have you thought of any you wish you could create?
I would love to play. I don't play an instrument, and I would love to play an instrument. We actually, in rehearsals, we did workshop some of the instruments. Even the singers got to do it as well, and it was incredible. Like, we learned how to play the drum wall, and just like the beat and stuff, and the drumbrellas. They turn and you can hit them, which was amazing. It was a lot of fun. But one instrument I really want to play is the earth harp, which is a beautiful instrument.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I don't play, so it's hard. I wish I could, but that was my first kind of exposure to it all. And
you just kind of need to hit play on the CD and then step into the spot.
Yeah, literally. But yeah, so yeah, it would be nice to play an instrument, but I'd love to get on that harp at some point.
And then, in addition to all of these entertainment roles, you're also working on a ship, which means you have shipboard roles as well.
Yeah.
How has that process been for you?
Well, we do DreamWorks as well, which is for the children more so, and it's on the Esplanade, and it's this big parade, and that's great fun. I'm like the Empress in Kung Fu Panda, and it's quite short, but it changes it up a bit, you know. It gives you something different to do. So I'm really grateful, and I'm so happy to be a part of this whole process, because it's challenged me in many ways. And I've met the most incredible people, so it's nice to have Mamma Mia, Sonic Odyssey, DreamWorks. Nice to have different things to do throughout the ship. So yeah.
And then you're also involved in things like the lifeboat drills. Has that
the
been
lifeboat,
extra challenging?
It's been that we did a lot of those at the beginning of the contract, but it's been quite nice to learn about the ship, because it shows you where the exits are. That helped me learn the routes as well. Yeah. But again, you get put together with different people, and there's people from the shops, there's people from iFly, there's people from all over the ship. So that's, as well as learning the drills and learning where to go, you meet other people, and I don't mind it, you know. It's part of the job, and I love meeting new people anyway. So yeah, it's all part of it. It's all part of the job.
Right. So when the Quantum of the Seas heads to China, Mamma Mia is not going with it. It's moving over to the Allure of the Seas. Yes. What does that mean for you?
Well, we finish May 13th, so that's us done. They're auditioning the new cast currently at the moment, and then they take over from us. So that's a great question. It's always at the end of the contract, it's like, now what do you do? Because you've got to find the next job. Yeah. And when you're not in London, or that's where I'm from, or wherever you're from, you can't audition to get that next job. So it's kind of back home and get out and audition as much as you can. That's the hard part about this job, but it makes it exciting, and you never know what's around the corner. So I don't mind it so much.
So do you think you'd audition for it on Allure of the Seas, or would you try one of the other Broadway shows?
Oh, I'd love to. I'd really love to. And I mean, this is like a dream. I can't believe I'm here. I have to pinch myself. So that. I mean, I don't know. That's ahead. That's too early to think about that at the moment. But I mean, it would be lovely. You know, the Allure we went on the Allure for training, and it's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, huge. So that would be great. You know, who knows? Who knows? Fingers crossed. We'll see. Only time will tell. So yeah.
Then is there anything else that you want to tell the viewers before we go?
Just that if anyone out there gets a chance to come on a ship and do a show, do it, because it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, and you meet the most incredible people and get to work with incredible cast, and it's amazing. So I feel very lucky. And so do it. But yeah.
Thank you for taking the time.
Lovely to meet you. See you soon.
So, once again, thank you to Danielle for taking the time to talk to us. Hopefully everybody out there enjoyed it, and I know I personally enjoyed it. So be sure to come on Quantum, see Mamma Mia. It is a great show, as I mentioned the other night. I've seen it 3 times so far. And of course, Danielle is also in Sonic Odyssey, which we'll be talking about more tomorrow, as we will have William Close on the show to really explain more of what goes on with Sonic Odyssey. So be sure to tune in tomorrow for that, as we continue with another sea day on our way back up to New Jersey. But for today, that about does it all. So once again, I am Derek Cohn, and stay tuned for the links.